Dear students, good morning. Today we are going to see about the neurons and neural networks. Previous videos we have discussed about the basics, and now we are going to discuss about the multi-layer perceptron. Previously we have discussed a single layer perceptron, what is meant by perceptron and what is single layer perceptron. We have the input data and also output, and in intermediate we have a few layers. Okay, in the single layer perceptron we will have only one layer that will process and analyze, so that we have the steps like activation functions, all those kind of function it will be carried out in that layer. But coming to the multi-layer perceptron, the perceptron learning algorithm updates the weights of the connections. So you just see the image, we have the input data and output data and layer 1, layer 2. So we can call it as a hidden layer. Based upon the application process we may call the layer 1 or layer 2. Okay, based upon the complexity of the problem, we can use all the hidden layers, either layer 1 or layer 2. So this is how multi-layer perceptron works. And the basic components of a perceptron, whatever the perceptron we have, either single layer, whatever may be the type, either single layer or multi-layer perceptron, the basic unit of the neural network comprise essential components that collaborate in information processing. Input features, the input feature, the perceptron takes multiple input features. Each input feature represents a characteristic of attribute of the input data. Here weights, next one is weight. Each input feature is associated with a weight, determining the significance of each input feature in influencing the perceptron's output. During the training, these weights are adjusted to learn the optimal value, because the weight space is the very important in every perceptron, and each input feature is associated with the weight. And coming to the summation function, the perceptron calculates the weighted sum of its inputs using the summation function. The summation function combines the input with their respective weights to produce a weighted sum. Activated function, the next form is activated function. The weighted sum is then passed through an activation function. Perceptron uses heavy side step function, which takes the summed value as input and compare with the threshold and provide the output as zeros or ones. We obviously knew that if we are taking the step function, either it may be a 1 or either it may be a 0. That is the case of the output we used to have. So these are the basic components of the perceptron. And coming to the output side, the final output of the perceptron is determined by the activation function results. So in the last slide we have defined what is activation function. The weighted sum is then passed through an activation function. Perceptron uses heavy side step function. What is step function? The output, it may be a 0 or 1. So here, coming to the output, the final output of the perceptron, it is determined by the activation function's results. For example, the binary classification problems, the output might be represented a predicted class 0 or 1. So we all knew that what is a binary, that is zeros and ones, we used to call it as the bits. That is, the expansion of bits is binary digit. Okay, so here the binary classification problems, the output might be a predicted class, either it may be a 1 or 0, because we are using the step function in the activation function. That is the main cause for this. Okay, and coming to the bias mode, and a bias term is used. Usually what is meant by biasing? Either it may be a forward bias or we can have a reverse bias. Likewise we have in electronics. And coming to our neural network, a bias term is often included the perceptron model. The bias allow the model to make adjustment that are independent of the input. That means it is an additional parameter that is learned during training. So bias allow the model to make adjustment that are independent of the input, whether it totally independent of the input. So it may be a it is an additional parameter that is learned during the training. So this is how the multi-layer perceptron works. So still now we have discussed about what does mean by multi-layer perceptron. The perceptron learning algorithms updates the weights of the connections based upon the input data as well as the output data, and in intermittent we can have the layers, layer 1, layer 2, and this is called the hidden layers. So the basic components of the perceptron takes the basic unit of the neural network, comprises essential components that collaborate the information processing. Input feature, the perceptron takes multiple multiple input features. Also the weight space is the very important. Based upon the weight, the prioritize will come, that is the input will be fetched based upon the weight space. And coming to the summation function, the summation function will sum up all the input data with the weight space, and it will give to the activation function. In this activation function, we will choose the step function. So while choosing the step function, we obviously knew that the output result, it must be either 0 or 1. So this is how the output, because we already defined the step function in predicted class 0 or 1, that is binary classification. So binary means whether this binary digit either 0 or 1. And biasing, it is a we can have, it is an additional parameter in the classification of the perceptrons. So in this next, coming to the learning algorithm weight update rule. During the training, the perceptron learns by adjusting its weight and bias based on a learning algorithm. That is, based upon the weight, it will adjust it, and it will go to the biased based on a learning algorithm. A common approach is the perceptron learning algorithm, which updates weight based on the difference between the predicted output and the true output. Yeah, in the same case we have discussed in the previous slide also. So the weight space does the major role in the perceptron classification, either it will be a single layer or multiple layer. Okay, and thank you for watching our video. Thank you.